Did you know there's a place in Puget Sound where you could catch a trophy king salmon, a chrome bright coho, and get chased by sea lions, navigate pier pilings and crab pots, all the while still trying to carry that fish 20 to 30 feet out of the water just to land it? We're talking pier fishing for Puget Sound salmon and how to get this done. So stay tuned with us.
Let's take a look over at the bait stop to showcase you guys some of the jigs you could be throwing off the piers here in Washington State. Many of these might look familiar to you, and there may be some other newer brands, but the general thing to keep in mind is confidence with what you're throwing. You just have to put your time in, frankly, to get these fish off the piers. Not every day is great. Some days there's no bites. Some days there's a lot. That's fishing. So you got to put your time in, and with that, confidence in what you're using is going to help you get more bites. Now, when you look at this, right, left to right, you're going to see some of the generic brands, some of the popular brands, and different things you guys can go and throw, along with some customs that I did up top. The big thing that you're going to see, almost majority-wise, 2 to 2.5 ounces. There's a couple outliers with a bigger 5-inch buzz bomb and these 3 and 3.5 ounce size jigs, but there's a reason for that. Okay, if you needed to get started right away, I would pick a couple of the 2-ounce jig sizes, and that's all you need. You don't have to go too crazy into this, but it's good to probably have 4 or 5 jigs on you just in case you lose a couple to the bottom. That being said, I would go with a couple colors, as you can see laid out in front. The blues, the greens, and an assortment of glow. That is what's going to really pay dividends to getting more strikes. The true staple of the Northwest is probably this Point Wilson dart. Used for many years off the piers, out in boats, a great jig to use all the way around. You can even put a little bend in them and they work really well. They also have an anchovy version. This one's seen better days, but it's caught a lot of fish. And frankly, that smaller bait profile sometimes really is what they're looking for. There's other jigs like this P-line laser minnow, or you can go into things like these flatter jigs, the chovy style. Pretty recent is this Puget pounder. This has been a really effective one as well. And then you have Delta's tackle in their herring spoon. It's a really nice jigging spoon there. Another chovy, but this is in the 2-ounce, a glow green and a silver blue. 4-inch skinny buzz bomb and the 5-inch buzz bomb. And then at the end of this, you got the old cripple herring 2-ounce in that tiger blue herring mackerel, excuse me. And then just a couple of these that I custom taped with Hypervis. It's really totally customizable to what you want to do. Now the key, again, is confidence, right? I know a lot of these up here have a little bit flatter profile jigs, which have more flutter. I like that because I feel it gives the fish more time to react versus something that's too heavy and flies right by their face. So that wounded bait fish profile really works well in these 2-ounce sizes, but having a couple 3-ounce ones is not a bad idea either, because sometimes those currents are ripping extremely fast and you need something to get down to the fish. So there's just a few options, different colors, to get you set up with some jigging spoons off the piers. Let's take a look at the next thing. Okay, we cannot leave out float fishing bait because this is a sleeper off the piers. Many end up using the jigs, and while they work, sometimes the float fishing gives you more opportunity in front of these schooling fish, coho especially. You catch a lot more kings off the jigs, and rightfully so, but as you get more and more of these coho pushing into the sound, I really think having a secondary rod with you and a herring and a float can be the difference in getting no bites to your limit of fish. I'm going to break this down just a little bit of what I like to do in regards to the float setup. It's just essentially a larger size to your normal steelhead slip float. Okay, you got a corky, a bead, a slip float, another bead, a 1 ounce banana sinker, about 5 feet a leader to a double hook setup. I like throwing a little UV bead on there just to help with a little bit of attraction. And that's it. We'll use this fluke as kind of an example of the hook placement setup. That's really all you need. Super simple. I really like using these Gamakatsu barbless because then you don't have to worry about any pinching, no issues with the regulations in Puget Sound. I run a 2/0 for the back hook that goes off the tail of the fish, 3/0 through the nose, add a bait button to pinch that on, and those things will stay on there for the life of that herring. Now for floats themselves, right? You got these dink style floats that work really well. You have the Bomac bigger 1 ouncers. These big clear drifts work really well. And some of these smaller foam floats, dinks as well. So it just really is, again, preference. But you're going to find, right, because I got this rigged up here, you're going to see just a regular bobber stop setup, about 15 feet of top shot to my braid. That's really all you need. Between having 15 feet of top shot and your 5-foot leader, you can be fishing within 20 feet of the surface, roughly. And most of those schooling fish, coho or kings, are typically going to be in that rough area a lot of the time. So this can be super effective early on in the morning when you get a hot incoming tide, when there's a little bit of current movement. Done really well in the past on coho doing this. So definitely don't count out the bait show. Really is a fun way to do it. I always have 2 rods when I get to this time of the year fishing off the piers. Now there's one other sneaky bit to talk about. From piers or jetties, you can be throwing spinners as well, especially with these coho. They love it. Or even spoons, right? You got to have a heavy enough weight. That's why the spinners actually will work a little bit better than spoons a lot of time, because spoons are harder to cast with the different conditions out there. With spinners like a Wicked lure here, you can put an ounce of weight and zing that thing way out there. You can get it through a lot of different depth ranges, and it can really work well. You can have some oversized torpedo spinners for off the piers and jetties. That one's a 3/4 ounce that I make. It could be an ounce or more. Some brand name ones like the Flying Sea is a good one. Yakima Bake makes a rooster tail that's 1 ounce that you can use as well. But I just wanted to showcase this because I've had success in recent years, especially with the plentiful amount of coho, to run some spinners from time to time when you're starting to see either schooling or jumping fish close to shore. It's worth trying. You never know. So got to have a little bit of variety, but got to go cover all the bases on either you're fishing jigs, floating bait, or spinners. You're going to go able to target those fish off the pier. We can't forget to talk about scents. One of the most important things that we often overlook is having just a little bit of scent added to your jigs or your spinners, just to help mask your human scent, give it a little bit more of a natural presentation, and help those fish hone in on your rigging. We got a couple different brands. Smelly Jelly here in both shrimp and herring. Very productive. We have a Procure Super Gels. These are good because they're more thick and can be used. These fire gels from Posky are really nice. I like these a lot. Probably what I use most of the time anyways, but you just need 1 jar and it'll last you more than a season. And so I really just pick something, maybe 2 small scents like that, and you're able to get yourself into more fish. Again, you're just masking your scent to help get those fish to turn on your stuff and smash them. Then one might ask, how am I going about getting all my gear to the pier? So I got an over-the-shoulder tackle bag from Cabela's. It can be any brand, it can be a backpack, whatever you guys feel most comfortable with. But here's what I got. I got my camera stuff for filming. I got a tackle box, which I love, this dual-sided. It's got all my jigs. I got extras that you just saw me go through. I keep an extra spooled reel just in case there's ever an issue with one of the ones that I bring. That would be a bummer to ruin your day and not have ability to fish. I then have a pocket with the scents we just went through. I got a front pocket
that I keep a fillet knife, a fish gripper, and some pliers. Got to keep everything barbless. And you never know, I keep some extra line and some squid jigs this time of the year, as we tend to find some squid and schools of bait fish coming around the pier at times. You never know what you're going to get. So that's how I'm carrying all my gear, is a bag like this over the shoulder. Most of the time I'm wearing it. Not to say that it happens often, but I've seen stuff walk on the pier as you have a lot of people around. I like keeping my gear on me at all times. So I make it this way so it's never going to walk. But that's how I carry all my stuff to the pier.
Now, after we've gone through all the tackle, I want to show you the gear that I'm throwing it on and really kind of break that down a little bit more in detail, right? I got my jigging rod here. I got my float rod for bait there. Jigging rod is a Scimitar Shimano, and this, I believe, it's an 8'6", 15 to 50, 3/4 to 3 ounce. It's really an extra heavy, but works perfect for the casting these bigger jigs off the pier. Gives you some power behind that. I've always liked that rod, especially for the cost. I got a 6500 Ambassador C4 reel, and then I got a float rod here, which is just a G Loomis 10-foot ESX, and just a 300 size reel, spool with braid, 65-pound test. Got our dual hook rig we went through earlier, and our float setup. That's pretty much what I carry every time I go out, and those get the job done. You really don't need a lot of gear that's fancy. This is a lot of multi-purpose gear that I use both on the rivers as well as my boat. So you guys can have gear that's dual purpose to last you more than one season as well as more than one opportunity to go use. So I highly recommend you guys go take a look at a versatile rod setup like this, so you guys can really enjoy the benefits of more than one outing and be able to do that.
Now, while this doesn't go without saying, having a good rain jacket and being prepared is something that you should consider and think about. And I'm saying this from personal experience. Not long ago, I didn't think it was going to rain. And by the time I got to the pier to go fish, it was pouring. So I just ended up getting soaked because I left everything at the house. Having a good rain jacket, some boots, even maybe some waterproof pants may be the difference in having you enjoy the time that you're going to get out to fish. Because we don't always have windows every day. Sometimes those stormy days could be the best bite of the year. So always prepare and be ready.
Now, if you heard me at the beginning, when I mentioned carting a fish 20 to 30 feet up out of the water to be able to land it, you have to have something that makes that work. Off the piers in Washington State, a lot of the times, many use crab rings. Not all crab rings are created equal, though. Some are too shallow, some are too flimsy, not strong enough. So there really isn't just a one-size-fits-all. The local pier anglers who do this all the time have customized their own to have deeper netting, ability-wise for these fish to not come loose. There's a lot of fish that get lost in the net process and come off. So, in order to do this right, you got to get a jumbo size crab ring net with a deep hoop. Now this means having that fish without the room to slide back out as you're carrying it up the pier. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to buy a crab ring. Yes, there always are locals there that typically have theirs with them, especially during the peak times of the year. However, if you're fishing off hours or different times where there may not be a lot of people, you might be the only person down at the pier that hooks a fish, and there's no one that has a net. So I'd rather be the person that brings it out of just making sure, being overly cautious, than just assuming somebody's going to have it, and then next thing you know, you're stuck. So you'll see a lot of people that bring little carts with them. They have their crab ring on it with rod holders for their rod setups, all their gear together, like a little beach cart. That's kind of the ideal setup for a pier angler. But you don't have to go full bore like that.
If you're just trying to get into this, grab a rod, like I said, grab a couple jigs, go down to the water, and we'll start showing you right now how to fish it.